Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, the shocking headlines.
Kenneth White killed by a massive rock thrown off the overpass.
These kids had allegedly thrown tires, a shopping cart. How did you feel when your son was being charged with second-degree murder?
The parent of a teen charged speaks out.
However, he got caught up in this is just not him.
Do you think he had any idea that someone was going to wind up killed? What do you say to Kenneth White's family, to his children?
The exclusive interview.
Did you read the statement your son had written?
It was incriminating.
What did it say?
That turns personal.
It happened in my family. That's my wife's sister's windshield.
The questions you want answered.
Somebody practically decapitates this man for no reason whatsoever. Why shouldn't people be outraged? It made national headlines when 5 Michigan teenagers were allegedly caught dinging, which is a dangerous game involving throwing objects off an overpass and trying to hit cars on the highway below. According to authorities, that game turned deadly on October 18, 2017, when the teens allegedly hurled a large rock that crashed through the windshield of a van, killing an innocent man, 32-year-old father of 4, Kenneth White, as he made his way home from work. Police arrested the 5 teens, and they were charged as adults with second-degree murder. If convicted, they could each face life in prison. Take a look.
We were all young and stupid at least once. But a night of pranks in Michigan has landed 5 teenage boys in jail.
5 high school students in Michigan are accused of throwing rocks off an overpass and killing a man.
32-year-old Kenneth White died last week near Flint, Michigan, when a 6-pound rock crashed through the windshield of a car he was riding in. A friend apparently was driving him home from work.
It seemed they thought it was fun to throw projectiles off an overpass into oncoming traffic below at least 20 times.
One by one, each of the 5 teens accused in the killing of Kenneth White made their way into a packed courtroom. Kyle Anger, McCaden Payne, Alexander Miller, Trevor Gray, and Mark Sikelski heard the criminal charges against them, all 5 facing second-degree murder counts. They believe a rock thrown by Kyle Anger killed White.
Kenneth White was engaged to be married, and he's the father of 4 children.
He took away a child's father and the love of my life.
The group of teens will all be tried as adults. They're charged with second-degree murder along with a host of other allegations that could put them behind bars for life.
Even if they spend 30 years in prison, they get to wake up every single morning. They still get phone calls from their parents. They still get visitors. My son don't get none of that no more. That was taken away from him for something stupid.
Today, in an exclusive interview, a parent of one of the accused teens speaks out for the first time. Michael Payne, McCaden Payne's father, joined us and shared never-before-heard details about the case. How did you find out that this had happened on the freeway?
I found out the next day, actually from a coworker, and I was like, man, that's terrible. And then I received a phone call before my shift ended that day, probably around 2 o'clock time frame, from the school principal that had called me and said that McCaden was being questioned by a couple of detectives, that I need to get up there. My first thought was here's maybe another incident that occurred with another individual. You know, that's the only thing that I could think of.
So you didn't connect the 2 events when they called you?
Not at all.
So did you leave your shift and go to school?
I left my shift and went to the school.
When was the first moment that you found out they were questioning McCaden about what happened on the overpass?
Yeah, when I got into the room, then they introduced themselves as their detectives' names and what the incident was about.
What did they say to you?
They told me that McCaden had just wrote a statement on paper. They told me that he was part of the 5 boys that were supposed to be the ones involved in the rock throwing.
At that point, did you know that someone had died?
Yes, I did.
Was that on the news that night, or did you hear it from your friend at work?
Apparently it was on the news that afternoon because a friend of mine at work had told me that he had heard about it on the radio, and then it kind of hit home.
Just as a dad, Take me through that moment when a detective has just told you that your son has just written a statement about being involved in an incident where a man was killed. What went through your mind at that point?
Total devastation. I didn't know exactly how to register that right off the bat. It was powerful. It was hurtful. I felt really bad for the whole situation. It's difficult and hard to explain.
Well, try for me. I mean, this is your son.
To know that just a couple hours prior to this, I had heard this from a coworker, and to now sitting right next to my son that is the accused of this situation, I don't have words to explain that.
Did you read what he had written?
I did read it.
And what did it say?
Very little. I'm not sure if I should talk about that.
But when you read the statement, it was incriminating.
It was incriminating.
Now, he's 16, and they questioned him without you being there?
And I had raised that question, and they told me that it is lawful and they could do that because he was 16 years old, that he could give a statement without a parent being present.
Now, there are reports that one of the boys turned themselves in. Is that true?
I heard that, but I'm not positive.
I've also heard that there was a tip on social media that somebody picked up. Had you heard that?
I did.
Did you read what was on social media?
I did not read the tip.
And did they tell you what he was being charged with?
They kind of left that open at the time. They said that they had enough evidence that they were going to take them down for the incident that happened on the Dodge Road Bridge.
Did he leave school that day in handcuffs?
Yes, he left school that day in the handcuffs.
Along with two other boys?
Two other boys.
So he's charged with what now, to your understanding?
They're charged with second-degree murder and some other charges. I think there's a total of 10 charges altogether.
How did you feel when you understood that your son was being charged as an adult with second-degree murder?
I never thought in a million years that I would ever face anything like that, and especially coming from one of my own, you know, an incident involving somebody dying is devastating.
They've been referred to as the Clio 5. How do you feel about him being grouped in as the Clio 5?
I don't like that at all.
What's your objection to it?
You know, the comments that are being made, judgment before anything even comes out about this, they're already deemed bad kids, and it's not true. They were involved in something that took a person's life, but to discredit them out there the way that people are right now, I think is just not right.
Let's look at this from a cold, objective standpoint. Your son is just one of the kids on this bridge, and they are kids. In my opinion, these are kids. They're not adults, they're kids. Your son is a bright young man. Is he not smart enough to think through if you drop a 6-pound, 8-pound, 20-pound rock off of a bridge where it drops 15 feet and hits a car going 70 miles an hour, that it can hit a windshield and have devastating results? I mean, is he smart enough to know that?
I would say yes, sir, he is. Why he involved himself in however that is, I don't know.
Would you expect him to say, what the hell are you guys doing?
That's what I would have expected him to say. He's always been taught to walk away, stay away from people that may be doing something that looks like it's even going to remotely go bad. That's why this is so shocking to know that his involvement in any way is not him, it's not his character.
Well, if the sheriff is correct, these kids had thrown tires, rocks, a chair, a shopping cart off of overpasses. This wasn't a one-time deal, so this wasn't like one lapse in judgment. Are you aware of those allegations?
I am aware of those, and from what I know, McCaden wasn't involved in those.
They had a word for it. They called it dinging, apparently, according to the sheriff. Had you ever heard that word?
Not up until that point.
You had never heard it talked about or Never heard your son say the word?
No, never.
So your theory is that the only time your son did this was the time he got caught?
Correct.
Allegedly, these teens collected large rocks and put them in a flatbed truck. Whose truck was it?
It was Kyle Anger's truck.
And Kyle is the older boy, the 18-year-old?
Yes.
And they got the rocks from somebody's house, somebody's land?
That's what the report says. I don't know any of the logistics of exactly what happened.
It's alleged that they came from one person's property and they loaded them onto this truck. And it just seems like if the allegations are true, there was a lot of forethought to this. It wasn't like an impulse, that there was lots of time for somebody to say, no, this doesn't make sense. We're not going to do this. You know, we always say hindsight's 20/20. Is he shocked that he didn't say, whoa?
He's very regretful that he did not,
stop this.
Stop an altercation.
Well, this has been a huge national story, as you know, with some people saying things like, throw the book at him, fry him, put him under the jail, give him life. What do you say to those people?
Coming up.
Where does he go when he goes out at night?
He doesn't go out at night.
Well, he went out this night.
This February.
Y'all brought someone here that I explicitly said not to bring.
Would you like to leave? Because nobody tells me who to put on my show, including you.
On the #1 daytime talk show.
I believe that Tyler Perry is raising my son.
So you are married to Tyler Perry?
Yes, I am. I have not seen him face to face.
How did somebody get eggs out of your body?
I don't know.
Who does know?
Tyler knows.
He'll dig deeper.
My younger sister faked being pregnant.
You gave her a positive pregnancy stick. Where'd you get it?
To uncover the truth.
You knew you weren't pregnant.
Why did you do that? I don't know.
I don't accept that answer.
He'll fight stronger.
My mom is so religious. She thinks any skirt over the knee is sinful.
To protect the innocent.
You tried to read the Harry Potter books?
It promotes witchcraft.
There's something wrong with you.
You're a waste of a life. I'm sorry, Dr. Phil, but...
Well, you should be sorry. You've not said one positive thing about this young woman since you walked out here.
He'll push harder.
Have you molested your children?
Never.
I was silent when he was taking advantage of me and our children. And I'm not going to be silent anymore.
To get the answers.
Your daughter is hooking.
Don't knock it till you try it.
You are such a hood rat.
Okay, I'll be a hood rat and you're a horrible mom.
It doesn't bother you that
You bother me.
Erica's in a polyamorous relationship.
I'm the most connected to myself than I've ever been.
You're homeless with your children.
I would never think that I could tell you what to do. I didn't know. I'm so sorry.
I'd give you a handkerchief for crying, but there aren't any tears.
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
These 5 teens from Michigan are accused of throwing 6-pound rocks off an overpass. Now they are in shackles, and their families are in a state of shock. The prank, called dinging, killed 32-year-old Kenneth White, his fiancée, Amy Cagle.
He took away a child's father and the love of my life.
The 5 suspects in the Michigan case in which the father of 4 died have all been charged with second-degree murder. They are in jail without bail. They have all pled not guilty.
Well, this has been a huge national story, as you know, with some people saying things like fry them and put them under the jail, give them life. What do you say to those people?
It's hard to accept the words that you hear and the way that people think about these boys, and they're just being judged before it's over. My boy is not this type of a boy that would participate in anything like this. He did in some way, but this isn't the true him. And however he got caught up in allegedly participating, I don't know.
And you use the word allegedly. Let me just preface all this by saying these are all allegations here. We don't know what happened. You say he got caught up in this. What was his relationship with these other boys? Were they around the house? Did you know them?
I knew two of them that he had grown up with that had been friends up through probably the better part of the 6th grade, and then they kind of fell away from each other due to sports and other things and different likes. And then they've somewhere along the lines come back and reunited and started to hang around together again a little bit.
Which two did he know that he hung out with?
Mark and Alex.
What did they like to do when they hung out? Were these kids jocks or video gamers or what?
Mark and Alex were jocks. And my boy, he just basically is the outside type of a character. He's not really much into the sports.
What did he like to do?
Hunts, fish, the typical kid thing, you know, camping and being out in the woods, riding his quads and dirt bikes.
When he was around these other 4 boys, where was he age-wise with the other 4?
2 are 15 and 2 are 16, and the other boy had just turned 18.
And McCaden is how old?
He just turned 16 in September.
The 18-year-old is which one?
That's Kyle.
Okay, and did you know him at all?
I don't know him at all.
Did it surprise you that a boy 2-3 years older was hanging around with these younger kids?
It did, and a person that I was unaware of that my boy had any kind of dealings with.
Mm-hmm. Had McCaden been in trouble before at school or with the law?
No trouble with the law, no trouble at school outside of a few incidences, you know, helping somebody out that was being bullied.
Helping him out in what way?
Deterring a situation from occurring.
So he stepped in if somebody was being picked on?
Correct.
Would you consider him a tough kid? Would you say he stepped in to stop somebody being bullying? Could he take care of himself?
He can take care of himself.
Yeah. So he's not likely to be picked on?
He's not violent, but he's disciplined to the point of he can take care of himself if ever need be.
Would you describe him as a follower, a leader, people pleaser? Where would you put him in terms of personality?
He does like to please people. He is not a follower, and he does like to lead and go his direction.
Kids these days will experiment with drugs or alcohol. How about him? Is he?
No, it's out of the question. He's never ever smelled like alcohol or never come home smelling like any kind of pot or anything, so.
Where does he go when he goes out at night?
He doesn't go out at night.
Yeah, well, he went out this night.
Well, this night here happened to be, he was not on my premises at that time when that happened. And I don't really know what transpired from start to finish.
Where was he? You say he wasn't with you that day?
According to him and 3 or 4 of these boys were supposed to be going to clean some geese that a couple of them have shot in one of the person's grandfather's cornfield.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, that's what took place. And then after the fact, I don't really know what happened after that.
And did he come home that night?
He went to his mother's house that night.
Did he say anything to her about anything having happened?
She wasn't home at the time. His sister was there. She told me that he had went straight to bed and that he was tired.
Do you think he had any idea that someone was going to wind up killed?
Coming up.
You don't think there should be a murder charge here?
I'm not going to say that I don't think there should be a murder charge. I just don't think that it needs to be life in prison for them all.
Should any of them get life in prison?
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
What do you say about these teens calling this, prank, throwing rocks that killed them?
It's not a prank, it's second-degree murder. I don't think anybody's laughing, and I think if there's any admonition, any warning that both David and I can give, it's telling young people that you make a bad decision, you could be spending the rest of your life in prison. This is not a prank.
Do you think he had any idea that someone was going to wind up killed?
No, not at all. He would have never participated in anything that would have been a known fact of taking someone's life.
What is a just punishment for something like this?
There has to be some accountability. What that is, I'm not sure. Rehabilitation of some type. I don't think that these boys all need to go to prison for the remainder of their life.
Is there a difference between whichever boy allegedly dropped the rock and a boy that was just standing there?
It would, I guess, depend on, you know, what it comes down to as far as what took place.
This man that lost his life, his name is Kenneth White, as you know, the father of 4 children. How do you feel about Kenneth White, his children?
I feel for the family. I feel for their loss, leaving 4 kids without a father. It's hurtful on both sides. You know, I've got, you know, my side of this incident. I have a loved one that's involved in it. I feel compassion for the family.
Is McCaden scared?
Very. This has taught him a valuable lesson, and you know, he's going through a lot of emotions. He's learning a different way of living.
What's his life like day to day, being incarcerated?
He's very depressed. He tries to keep strong. I write him daily to keep him built up and lifted up and encouraged.
You don't think there should be a murder charge here?
I'm not going to say that I don't think there should be a murder charge. They all have consequences of some type. I just don't think that it needs to be life in prison for them all.
Should any of them get life in prison?
I think the very person that took Kenneth White's life, maybe not life, but some accountability for that.
What should happen to your son?
It depends on the severity of his involvement. And what that is today, I don't know.
But if he knew what was going on, he helped load the rocks onto the truck, he drove up there knowing what was going to be done, he did nothing to stop it, he was leaning over, watching or whatever, and didn't drop the rock, but was involved to the point of going along with it, not stopping it, you would say that's more culpable.
Coming up.
This set of circumstances has hit really close to me. It happened in my family.
Dr. Phil's sister-in-law's horrific accident.
Overpass, uric acid, windshield looked exactly like the windshield in your situation. She had burns over 70% of her body because some idiot threw something off the overpass.
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
If he knew what was going on, he helped load the rocks onto the truck. He drove up there knowing what was going to be done. He did nothing to stop it. He was leaning over, watching or whatever, and didn't drop the rock, but was involved to the point of going along with it, not stopping it. You would say that's more culpable.
I would say that's more culpable.
You say people are judging these kids without really knowing them, judging your son without knowing him. What do you want them to know about him?
McCaden is very respectful, very helpful, very organized. He tends to help others out before he does the things that he wants to do. And he's a well-rounded, good individual.
A lot of theories for incarceration. Protecting society from predators, monsters, rehabilitation, setting examples for others of consequences if they do bad things. A lot of different theories. Do you think your son needs prison to deter him from ever doing something like this again?
Most definitely not.
You think he's learned that lesson?
I know he's learned that lesson.
I don't know if you know it, but there's this fact pattern, this set of circumstances has hit really close to me, which is why I followed this story so closely. I'll let you take a look at this tape and you'll understand what I mean.
Dr. Phil McGraw has helped thousands of viewers through their most difficult personal tragedies. Well, now a random attack has the doctor facing one of his own. An unidentified attacker had doused his sister-in-law with acid.
She is in the Oklahoma City Burn Center with burns over 70% of her body.
On June the 5th, 2001, I was headed to the airport with my good friend Jim.
The windshield exploded. It sounded like a bomb.
Oklahoma lawmen continue their search for the person who threw a jar of acid onto a passing car.
Someone high above on this overpass dropped a burning liquid like a bomb.
The acid burned my face, my lips, my cheeks, my chin, my chest, my arms. I inhaled acid and it burned the inside of my throat.
She was screaming. She was telling me she was dying.
I remember having my hands on my face and thinking I was bleeding and then realizing that was my skin in my hand.
Doctors say had she not been wearing eyeglasses, she may have been left blind.
The whole time I was at the hospital, Jim, my daughters, Robin, my other sisters were all at my side.
My first reaction when I saw Mom in the hospital was just pure shock. She heard me gasp.
My mom is very much a fighter. I didn't see how my mom was going to come home alive.
Phil was a tremendous help. He has worked hard to find the person that committed this crime.
I'm offering a substantial cash reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of these people.
From the moment of the attack, I've decided that it was up to me and I was going to live. I've had 15 surgeries. I helped pass a law in my home state.
There you go.
Cindy Broaddus Act is a law that makes throwing anything from a bridge or an overpass a felony. I'm at peace with the fact that I look like a burn victim. I made a choice not to be bitter.
It happened in my family.
Sorry for that.
Overpass, muriatic acid. Windshield looked exactly like the windshield in your situation. Kenneth was killed. Cindy almost died. She had full depth burns over 70% of her body because some idiot threw something off the overpass. There's a difference between the two. We never found out for sure who did this crime to Cindy. We pretty much feel like we know who did it. By the time we narrowed it down, both of them were dead. They'd both been killed, but they were both adults. They were approaching 30 years of age. The difference to me is when you're a kid, your brain isn't through growing yet. You know, your brain grows until you're 25. And when you're 16, 17, the last part of the brain to really grow and develop is the neocortex. It's that part of the brain that you reason with. It's part of the brain that you have the ability to predict the consequences of your actions. Kids that age just don't have the ability to really project and reason out ahead, which is why I think 16-year-old kids should typically be tried as kids, not adults. I've studied everything I can about your son, and I could see not one thing in his background that would make me believe that he's murderous, homicidal. Is he capable of having stupid moments, stupid thoughts? That I would say he's certainly guilty of, but you'd have a hard time convincing me that he stepped on that bridge with the intention of killing someone. Should he have been there? No. Should he be held accountable for whatever his role was? Absolutely. An innocent man lost his life. A woman lost the father of her children, and 4 innocent children will grow up without their father. If those boys were on that bridge, they certainly knew the difference between right and wrong.
Coming up.
How do you think he would react when he found out that someone had been hurt and in fact lost their life?
I know it crushed him.
Does he get the gravity that someone is dead?
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
David Layton is Genesee County's elected prosecuting attorney.
My heart hurt when I had to make this decision. When you read the reports, they sound like adults, but when you see them, they're clearly children.
Even though he doesn't believe they intended to kill, he argues they knew the potential consequences of their actions.
This is not a prank. This is not the actions of a kid. And this is second-degree murder.
You know, the prosecutor, Layton, said, and I quote, "My heart hurt when I had to make the decision because they're kids. I don't think that these kids should not be held accountable, nor do you, correct?"
I don't.
And I think there has to be some wisdom involved in this, is what I'm saying. Well, I'd like to talk to Jamie, the woman that McCaden thinks of as a stepmother, as well as your attorney, Michael Manley. So if we can add them to the conversation. Well, thank you two for joining us. You've been listening to everything that we've talked about. Jamie, let me start with you. You know McCaden very well.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised to hear that he had any involvement in this at all?
My heart sank. It's not typical of his behavior. I'm devastated.
Why doesn't this fit with his personality and his makeup?
He's always the type of person that goes above and beyond to help anybody. I mean, I work for the school district. When I volunteer for any school function, he's always right there with me. He's helping out our elderly neighbors with anything that they need.
Why did he go along with this? If he was there on that overpass, why would he not say something?
I don't think he was thinking. That's not his typical behavior, so to me, he wasn't thinking at the time.
Right. Now, you're a teacher. Do you know any of these kids?
I know Alex and I know Mark from McCaden growing up, but I don't know the other ones now.
Tell me about those kids. Are they the kids you would expect him to be friends with?
Yes, but they, like Michael said earlier, they haven't really spoken and hung out since they were in probably 5th or 6th grade. But when they were younger, they were always outside. They were building lemonade stands. They were building forts in the backyard. That was the type of things that they did together. So when he started hanging out with them again, I thought maybe they're just getting back to their old ways of being, the way that they were before.
So describe McCaden.
He loves to be outdoors. He is very creative, very innovative, very helpful. Mm-hmm. He does, what teenage boy helps with laundry? Seriously, without being asked, or does dishes without being asked? That is the type of child that he is. So
is he an affectionate?
Very. He loves giving hugs and getting hugs.
How do you think he would react when he found out that someone had been hurt and in fact lost their life?
I know it crushed him. Right now, I know he's struggling with that big time.
Does he get the gravity that someone is dead?
Yes, he does. It really affects him.
You being a father, you know the power and importance of a father in the home. What do you say to Kenneth White's family? What do you say to his children?
Coming up.
Here's a man riding along, and somebody, for their own entertainment, steps up there and practically decapitates this man for no reason whatsoever. Why shouldn't people be outraged at that?
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
Amy Cagle still can't believe 32-year-old Ken White, her fiance and father of their child, won't walk back into her life.
He didn't deserve to die like that. That's what I want is justice, and for him to just be taken away so fast and so brutally, I feel like it's just wrong. He was the love of my life.
You being a father, what do you say to Kenneth White's family? What do you say to his children?
I'd like to ask if they could please accept our apologies, and we hope that they can someday be able to forgive the incident. And I know they're looking for justice, and that, I think, will play out in the time to come.
What do you want them to know about McCaden?
I would like them to know that this is not a murderer. He is not a problem child. This is not this character that would set out to go to try to destroy somebody's life. and he understands the severity of what happened.
If they're thinking he's some kind of monster, are they wrong?
They're definitely wrong, but I can understand their reasoning.
Michael, you represent McCaden, and at this point, you're working with the prosecutor. He said, it breaks my heart to charge them as adults. So why charge them as adults?
Well, I think Mr. Layton had no choice at this point due to the fact that if he didn't, he couldn't later do it without going through a lengthy judicial process. So I'm very confident in him, and I think when he sorts out the facts that resolutions will be worked out. But he's also very victim-driven, and the White family's very angry, and they have every right to be. I saw your face as it related to your sister-in-law, so now it's where the adults have to take over and try to set aside that anger and emotion and come to some fair resolution.
But why set it aside? Because here's a man riding along, a good man, a productive man, a contributing member of society. He's got 4 children, and somebody, for their own entertainment, steps up there and practically decapitates this man for no reason whatsoever. Why shouldn't people be outraged at that? Why shouldn't they say, this is absurd and we need to make an example out of these kids?
I'm appalled by what happened, but when we make decisions about our future, we have to decide what type of society are we when we sentence kids and juveniles that commit adult types of crimes. I've been very impressed with what you have said regarding the psychological aspects, and I want to tell you the reason we are here today is your credibility, your expertise, and this platform to tell the public that we have to decide as a society who we are, and we have to come together without political slogans about being tough on crime, building more prisons, and locking kids up and throwing away the key. That's not the answer.
Here's what we have to avoid, though. We have to avoid Mrs. White's 4 children growing up and getting old enough to say, what happened to Daddy? And she has to say, nothing. Nothing really. That's the balance that has to be stricken, right? I mean, she's got to feel as though justice was served here. There has to be accountability, but not destruction. So, what's the latest in the investigation?
Monday on an all-new Dr. Phil.
What did Daddy do to you?
A father accused of the unthinkable.
Did you call the police?
Immediately.
The police report says you called 16 days later. Did you molest your daughter?
Absolutely not.
Come on, tell the truth.
You are out of your mind. Show physical evidence and put me in jail.
I have. He has in his hands.
Here it is. It says diaper rash.
Sexual abuse.
It does not say sexual abuse.
All new Dr. Phil. That's Monday.
So, what's the latest in the investigation?
The FBI has all the cell phones and the computers. When all the facts are brought out, negotiations can start. And I have seen the White family, and they're devastated, and they deserve justice.
You have said your son should have accountability for whatever his level of culpability is. I think we all agree with that. White family, you're certainly in my prayers, and I hope my viewers will put you in theirs. So thank you all for being here and talking about this today. All right.
Thank you.
I want to thank Michael for sharing his story. He says he cannot express enough sorrow about the way he feels for Kenneth White's family, and he wants to thank the community that has supported him through this difficult time. Now, we'll continue to follow this story and keep you posted on the outcome. The most important thing to remember here is that an innocent man has lost his life. Kenneth White was a hard-working man whose children are now left without a father. His fiancée says Kenneth was a good-hearted man who would want her to forgive the perpetrators. But justice must be served here, and those accused must take accountability. Let's take some time to remember Kenneth White. We pray for healing for the family he left behind. Thanks for watching.
He was very thoughtful, and he could make you laugh if you were sad. I wish he was here right now so it could make me laugh.
He was the love of my life. We had a special kind of something. And that he was the best father. And I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. But now I don't have that chance.